These people, grandparents and a child that were on a roof, and it was before the roof swept away, the building swept away, and they drowned. But there's a photograph of the last photograph of them on the roof, and they're terrified. And this little girl and her grandparents are on this roof. And how much relief are they going to get? Is it going to be like Maui, where you give them $700? That's more insulting than giving them no money. A one-time fee of $700, but you're going to give Ukraine 170 whatever billion.
After Helene made landfall in the United States on September 26, Joe Biden was at his house in Rehoboth Beach. Vice President Kamala Harris was flying between ritzy California fundraisers, hobnobbing with celebrities. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas was in Los Angeles presiding over an award ceremony. How do you respond to those accusations from J.D. Vance?
Kate, we don't listen to or pay attention to such unproductive and, quite frankly, counterproductive words. And I will tell you another negative impact of this deliberately false information. It is demoralizing to the men and women at the federal level, at the state and local level, who are actually risking their lives to save others and to bring much needed relief to those who need it.
I don't know how long it's been this way, and I couldn't tell you exactly how it happened, but we do not have a real media in the United States of America. We haven't for a very, very long time, man. We have narrative peddling propaganda tools, basically. And most of the tools, they don't even realize that that's what they are. And I'm going to show you in this video that there is nothing that these people will not ignore. There's nothing they won't excuse, and there's definitely nothing they won't misrepresent in order to achieve their goals, right? And that's the thing. They shouldn't even have a goal. I mean, literally, their one and only goal should be to inform the public and hold the powerful accountable. But they do have a goal, and their goal appears to be to destroy one political party in the service of the other political party. And I mean, if you look at the media, man, their job is to protect and represent the powerless against powerful interests, right? And I'm going to show you that they have become, all they are now is a tool of the powerful against the powerless. And I'm going to show you some pretty hilarious, pretty damn alarming highlights of the Kamala Harris media blitz. And I'm going to show you all these corporate media puppets literally doing their part to make it a success. And I think it's a pretty interesting place to start, something I think that's going to set the tone pretty well. Trump campaign press secretary Caroline Leavitt, she went on CNN, and CNN goes through the full range of TDS-fueled Democrat protectionism in the span of about 5 minutes, man. They go from Joe Biden isn't using FEMA funds to incentivize illegal immigration to, well, it's okay. If he is doing it, Donald Trump did it too. And then they end by saying anyone who says anything other than what the government approves is dangerous speech. I mean, this is the entire machine in a nutshell.
Joining us right now is from the Trump campaign, is Trump's national press secretary for the campaign, Caroline Leavitt. Caroline, thank you for coming on. And the congressman there, he said that he doesn't necessarily like all that FEMA is doing, but he pointed out that it's damaging the rumors that that is what is happening, the rumors that are circulating. And with regard to that, things that the former president has said is FEMA funds were stolen to be used to house illegal migrants, that no one from FEMA was on the ground in North Carolina, that funds were being withheld from Republican areas of the state on purpose. None of that is true. The head of FEMA says that worse than it not being true, it is dangerous that if this is pushed and circulated for the people who are most in need of help. With that knowledge, is the former president going to stop saying this?
I'm going to tell you, man, when a Democrat Party propagandist starts telling you that the language you're using or the facts that you're stating are dangerous, then this is how you know that they believe every single word of what you're saying. And when they say it's dangerous, what they actually mean is if anyone really believes this, it's going to be dangerous to them and dangerous to their power. If too many people hear what you have to say, it's going to be bad for them. And they say criticizing FEMA is dangerous. They believe that the truth is dangerous.
Well, first of all, Kate, let me just express our thoughts and prayers are with everyone in Western North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and now Florida, who are bracing for another devastating hurricane. The bottom line is that FEMA spent $1 billion on funding for illegal immigrants that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden let into the country. CNN and many mainstream media outlets reported that more than a month ago. Now, today, we find ourselves in a predicament where Americans are in dire situations in need of food and of water. And Secretary Mayorkas last week said that FEMA does not have sufficient funding to get through this crisis and through the rest of hurricane season.
But Caroline,
speaking of Secretary Mayorkas,
Caroline, I wanted. We just had Secretary Mayorkas on, but no. But first, on that, let's keep to the facts, which is on that suggestion that Donald Trump did make that they were stealing money from FEMA and using it, and it's all gone because they're using it to house migrants. That's not true. There's no disaster relief fund money that was going to house migrants.
I don't think the American people care which pocket the money came from. They do care that their tax dollars, $1 billion of their tax dollars, went towards housing migrants. That came from FEMA's funds. That is a fact. It is reportable, and it's very likely to assume that that money could have been reallocated to the disaster relief fund that now could be used to help our fellow Americans that are in need from these hurricanes.
It's not complicated, man. It really is that simple. FEMA has spent over $1 billion of taxpayer funding earmarked for emergency. That's what FEMA does. But they've spent this money on inviting, housing, clothing, and feeding millions and millions and millions of immigrants who obviously likely would not be here if not for the fact that we decided to spend $1 billion on them to ensure that they could be here, right? That's all this lady's saying. The American people that are actually paying attention, they don't care what source it's from. They don't care if it's from some bottomless special FEMA account. They care about the fact that the account exists at all. And even more, they care about the fact that the account that apparently is meant to protect and provide for actual Americans that actually need right now isn't equally bottomless, right? And it's actually kind of remarkable to watch these, media parrots pretending like FEMA spending $1 billion on migrants before nickel and diming storm victims is just some crazy right-wing talking point. I mean, it is truly completely insane.
And I would like to finish my previous point. And I heard you had Secretary Mayorkas on the show. I hope that you asked him about why he was shopping at a luxury men's warehouse store last week in the midst of this crisis, or why Kamala Harris was fundraising in San Francisco when Hurricane Helene made landfall, and why Joe Biden was sitting on the beach. If President Trump had done that, there would be outrage, and there should be outrage at our current elected officials, leaders in office who were sitting on their hands when this hurricane was making landfall on the United States. There was
Caroline,
a
I did ask the secretary
6 days to deploy troops.
Caroline, I did. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
I think we all can recognize that the truth is, if this was a Republican administration, especially if it was a Trump administration, if Donald Trump had been slow to react and sleeping at the beach during a hurricane, the country would be losing their minds right now. Every single media nutcase would be losing their minds right now. And they'd be right to do it, right? And I'm going to get back to these ladies here in a second because CNN, they're about to tell you that Donald Trump is the one who started using FEMA money to house and care for migrants anyway, so that it just makes it all okay. It's just one of the stages of TDS inspired grief. If you're keeping track, so far, they've denied facts. They've called stating facts dangerous. And the next and final stage is Trump did it so that it's totally okay. It's actually Trump's fault. Everything we're doing right now is Trump's fault. But first, I'm going to show you Scott Jennings, man, who you guys already know I really like. And he was actually part of the Bush administration during Katrina. And he remembers this kind of thing well. The guy's got some pretty good points.
Literally lived through Hurricane Katrina in the Bush White House. And as I know you lived through it, Anderson, covering it. And I don't recall any restraint by Democrats or the national media coming after George W. Bush and FEMA and every other thing, and it was immediately politicized. And, I well remember it. It's seared into my brain. And so now all these people are out here saying, we can't politicize this. We can't criticize this. Nothing can be said about Biden and Harris here or FEMA or anything else. And I just think, well, if a Republican were in the White House and the Republican president were at the beach and the vice president were raising money with celebrities, I guarantee you somebody would be mad about it.
Yeah, he's exactly right, man. People would be absolutely losing their minds. I mean, it'd be the crime of the century. I don't know if you guys remember, but when Katrina was poorly managed, right? And it was poorly managed. But when that happened, these same media types that are right now today telling you that it's unfair to criticize the government, they were the same people telling us that it was poorly managed because there's a lot of black people in New Orleans. And they wanted you to believe that George W. Bush was just taking his opportunity to delete as many black people as possible. completely insane. And obviously, I mean, one of the real lessons here is that these people really have always been insane. This is not a new thing. But when you really break it down, man, this has nothing to do with the response of Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or any of them to the actual storms. This has nothing to do with the demonizing or blaming FEMA, right? All it has to do with is priorities. That is all this is about. The American people believe that they and their well-being should be a priority of their government, that they're literally paying to do that job. And to be honest, most people who don't ingest this stuff daily, they really believe that that's the way it actually works. But when they see presidents start saying things like this is when it all went bad. This is when normal people start to worry.
We're on the ground ahead of time, so we're working hard.
Are there any more resources the federal government could be giving them?
No, we have pre-planned a significant amount of it, even though they didn't ask for it yet. Hadn't asked for it yet.
Yeah, this is what started all this. This is what started the public actually paying attention. Joe Biden going on TV as people were literally dying. And we still don't even know how many people are actually dead. We don't even know how many people are actually missing right now. But this was the message from the president as people were at that moment dying. He said, there's no more resources. There's nothing more we can give them. We've done all we can. And that just didn't seem right to people. That's not the America we know, especially when Mayorkas tells us a couple of days later that not only are there no more resources, but there's no more money for the next one either. And that's when people start paying attention because people want to know where the money went. It just didn't seem right, right? But of course, the government doesn't like being questioned. So now here we are in a situation where even asking these questions is considered dangerous misinformation. And if it's not dangerous, then it's not even happening at all. But if it is happening, it's okay because Donald Trump does it too.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. I did ask him about that. He said he was actually in Los Angeles recognizing the work of employees of the Department of Homeland Security that are part of what we're talking about here. But let me ask you something. This is quite so. What I've heard, what you're now saying is that you think it is. You don't think American people care where the money comes from. You think it is bad that they're using FEMA money to house migrants. Ironically, Donald Trump attempted something very similar to what he falsely now is claiming about them. In 2019, Trump used FEMA. Let me finish. Trump used money from FEMA's disaster fund for migrant programs at the southern border. He told Congress that he was intending at the time in 2019 to shift $271 million from DHS, including $155 million from FEMA's disaster relief fund to pay for detaining and transporting undocumented immigrants. Less than that was transferred from less than the $150 million was transferred. But money was transferred by Donald Trump in 2019 and the Trump administration from the FEMA disaster relief fund to house migrants. So is he then okay with moving disaster relief funds for dealing with migrants, but now is not?
You really got to wonder, man. You have to wonder if this woman actually believes this or if the producers that really just poorly prepped her actually believe it, or if none of them believe it. And they're just hoping with every bit of hope that they have that the audience is dumb enough to believe every goofy thing they say and that their guest is just not with it enough to push back. Because, I mean, this is a perfect example of why we can't trust the fact checkers. I mean, these people, they're either misrepresenting or they're completely lying. And here's the thing, man. When you hear these kind of people say something that just does not sound right, just check it out for yourself, man. I promise you, more often than not, your gut was right. You're going to find out that you were completely right. And here's what these people want you to believe right here. They want you to believe that Donald Trump raided FEMA to pay to take care of illegals. And if they can get you to believe that, then that means that what we're doing right now is okay and it's all Donald Trump's fault. But here's the truth. Here's what actually happened. Donald Trump redirected $38 million from disaster relief to ICE, Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement, in the year 2019. What CNN is not going to tell you, and this is how it's all very different, that money was part of carryover funds from the year before. It was unspent money. It was extra money, basically. So it didn't affect operations at all. It didn't affect anything anywhere. And the real difference is the money was used to deport people. So where Kamala Harris is spending over $1 billion to invite people and to care for them and to incentivize them to come, Donald Trump spent $38 million to deport them. I mean, these are not the same things. These are not even close to the same things, but this is exactly who these people really are.
Is that what you're saying?
What President Trump didn't do is allow an open border policy for 4 years, allowing nearly 20 million illegal people into the country, stressing our public infrastructure in cities across the country, using taxpayer dollars to fund illegals and put them in luxury hotels like we've seen in New York City, to give them prepaid debit cards to buy clothing and food when the American people are suffering from the
It's
worst
okay for
inflation
Donald Trump to do it. It is not okay for the Biden administration to do it. Caroline, it's okay. Donald Trump did that. Donald Trump did that in 2019, his administration.
President Trump did not allow an invasion of illegal immigrants into our country again and use billions of dollars to fund them in housing, to put them into luxury hotels. What he did do is use federal funding to deport them back to their home countries, which is something that Kamala Harris is refusing to do. And she is still yet to answer the question that if she is elected president in 28 days, what is she going to do with the 20 million illegal people that she has allowed into this country, including the convicted criminals? We know there's 425,000 convicted criminal illegal aliens in this country today. Kamala has yet to say whether or not she will deport them or keep them here and continue to use federal funding to house them and to subsidize their lifestyle on the taxpayer's dime. President Trump won't tolerate that. He's going to launch the largest mass deportation operation in American history, and he will ensure that American citizens are being put first by their federal government, that their tax dollars are going to them in times of need. And this is not the first time we've seen the White House and the Biden-Harris administration botch a crisis. We saw it in Afghanistan. They left Americans behind there. We saw it in East Palestine, Ohio, where Kamala Harris never visited and Joe Biden took months to actually go to tour the devastation from the train derailment. We saw it in Maui, Hawaii, where residents are still saying the federal government was not there to help them. This situation is no different, and we will take the word of residents in North Carolina and Florida and Georgia who have been left behind over the word of this administration, which has repeatedly been caught in lies.
Also, the word of a Republican member of Congress who says that these rumors that Donald Trump has been pushing, in part, the things he's been saying, is not true. You say that you haven't heard Kamala Harris answer a question. I'm just going to leave it here. But I'm not hearing you answer the question of why it was okay for the Trump administration to use disaster relief funds in order to deal with migrants in 2019, and it is now completely not okay and something he's hitting the administration on now. We're going to leave it there because I offered you 3 times to give me the answer, and I'm not getting it.
Yeah, the answer is the answer, man. And she answered it pretty damn perfectly, right? She said that Donald Trump did not use federal funding, FEMA funding, to invite, house, and sustain illegal immigrants. He used as little as he could to deport them, to hopefully send the message that we don't want the kind of immigration crisis that we're having now. But these people on CNN, they want you to believe that's the same thing. She claims to see both things as using federal funding to deal with migrants. Actual context doesn't matter to these people. Actual facts don't matter to these people. The difference between $38 million and $1 billion, that apparently doesn't matter to these people. All that matters to these people and people like them is propaganda and narrative. And this is how you end up with garbage like this just dominating the conversation.
The other point I'd make is that there's a lot of mis and disinformation being pushed out there by the former president about what is available, in particular to the survivors of Helene. And first of all, it's extraordinarily irresponsible. It's about him. It's not about you. And the reality is that FEMA has so many resources that are available to folks who desperately need them now, and resources that are about helping people get back on their feet and rebuild and have places to go. You are entitled to these resources. People are entitled to these resources, and it is critically important that people apply for the help that is there to support. That all of those resources were created for just these kinds of moments in an emergency situation, knowing that folks are entitled to have the relief that they so rightly need at this moment in time. So listen to your sheriffs around the places that have been impacted by Helene. Listen to your local sheriff who's going to tell you straight about what's available to you and how, for so many reasons and ways, there are no conditions attached to the relief that's available.
Dude, the same people who expect you to believe that Donald Trump laid the groundwork for Kamala Harris to funnel $1 billion of FEMA funding to illegal immigrants instead of the needs of actual American citizens are the very, very same people that expect you to believe that Kamala Harris is some emergency management super leader and that Governor DeSantis is playing pointless political games with the lives of Florida citizens, right? Kamala Harris is so starving for the spotlight that she's bitching about a governor not answering her phone call. And honestly, it was too much even for Joe Biden.
The governor of Florida has been cooperative. He said he's gotten all that he needs. I talked to him again yesterday, and I said, no, you're doing a great job. It's all being done well. We thank you for it. And I literally gave my personal phone number to call. So I don't know. There was a rough start in some places, but every governor from Florida to North Carolina has been fully cooperative and supportive and acknowledged what this team is doing. And they're doing an incredible job. But we got a lot more to do.
Pretty desperate stuff, man. So Kamala Harris, the woman who expects you to vote for her and to trust her after all this, says that Ron DeSantis is just a politics playing dangerous ideologue. But Joe Biden, the guy who she says is completely with it cognitively, says that he and Ron DeSantis talk every day on a phone line that Kamala probably doesn't even have herself, if you want to know the truth. And he says that the state-federal relationship is working great. Everyone's doing a great job. And honestly, that was pretty kind from Joe Biden. I think the DeSantis reaction was a little more fitting.
He said, moment of crisis, if nothing else, should really be the moment that anyone calls himself a leader, says they're going to put politics aside and put the people first. People are in desperate need of support right now and playing political games at this moment in these crisis situations. These are the height of emergency situations. It's just utterly irresponsible, and it's selfish, and it's about political gamemanship. What's your response?
Well, I think she should look in the mirror. We've been on an emergency footing for 2 weeks straight. My focus has not been on dealing with Kamala Harris. I saw the news report. I didn't know she tried to contact me. But I'd also say it's not about you, Kamala. Right. It's about the people of Florida. My focus is exactly where it should be. And I can tell you this. I've worked on these hurricanes under both President Trump and President Biden. Neither of them ever tried to politicize it. She has never called on any of the storms we've had since she's been vice president until apparently now. Why all of a sudden is she trying to parachute in and inject herself when she's never shown any interest in the past? We know it's because of politics. We know it's because of her campaign.
I'm telling you, man, anyone that doesn't recognize this for exactly what it is, you can't possibly be paying attention. And if a person is paying attention to all this and they still believe the narrative that Kamala Harris is just trying to help, they got to have their head checks, man. That person should probably not be allowed to have a driver's license, because the truth is, man, every single thing we're seeing here, it all boils down to priorities, man. It all boils down to agenda, man. And if we did not have government bureaucracy focused on all the wrong things, if we had actual politicians that focused on real and true and reasonable priorities, then we wouldn't even be having this conversation, man. Everything we're seeing here was destined to happen. FEMA stopped caring about emergency management many, many, many years ago, man. And this is not the first time that we're seeing the results. I mean, we saw the results in East Palestine. We see the results in Maui still. And we're going to keep seeing the same results, man. As long as the same clueless people remain in charge, then we're going to keep seeing these results, because this is what FEMA has become, man. And apparently there's been a shift in emergency management away from utilitarian principles to disaster equity. And this is their words. This is their words, not mine.
LGBTQIA people and people who have been disadvantaged already are struggling.
The shift that we're seeing right now is a shift in emergency management from utilitarian principles where everything is designed for the greatest good, for the greatest amount of people, to disaster equity. We also know that communities that are highly bonded within can survive in the immediate aftermath of a disaster. But if they're not linked outside of their highly bonded communities, they will have less ability to thrive and support and even influence how recovery looks in their communities. So we have to be looking at making sure that we have highly bonded communities, which would be, and one of them that I would identify would be LGBT communities, have to be highly linked across power structures before a disaster happens.
What are you and FEMA doing to prioritize equity when it comes to disaster recovery?
This is something that I think about every day, and this was one of my priorities when I first came into the agency to serve in this role as FEMA administrator. During my first period with FEMA, working with states and local jurisdictions and understanding the diversity of the communities, not just cities, but the neighborhoods within the cities and the challenges that they face. And how do we make sure we understand what their barriers are to accessing the programs that they're eligible for?
Dude, these are the people responsible for responding to the worst storms and disasters that we've seen in our lifetime, man. They have absolutely no clue what they're doing. If they ever had sight, they have lost sight of what their role really is. They've lost sight of what their role is supposed to be. They do not care about responding to disasters. They care about equity, which honestly is terrifying when you think about it, man. And if you think it sounds crazy coming from bureaucrats that you've never heard of, they're not the only ones, man. Kamala Harris thinks this same crazy stuff, man. And it really is as simple as priorities. I know I keep saying it, man, but it's as simple as priorities. Everything government does comes down to priorities. And Peter Doocy put it pretty damn perfectly with Karine Jean-Pierre that she stormed out of the room.
We've taken this very seriously. More than $200 million that we have provided to the impacted areas. But instead, people want to do disinformation, misinformation, which is dangerous, because then when folks on the ground hear that, they may not want to ask for the help that they need. That is there for them. That's our focus here.
But President Biden is fond of saying, show me your budget and I will tell you what you value. If he's got money for people in Lebanon right now, without Congress having to come back, what does it say about his values? There's not enough money right now for people in North Carolina who need it. That's not misinformation.
Wait, no, that is your whole premise of the question is misinformation, sir. What you do? Yes, it's misinformation.
Is there money to send to Lebanon right now?
I just mentioned to you that we provided more than $200 million to folks who are impacted in the area, and I just shared with you that people are deciding not to. People are deciding not to.
Letter to Congress that there's not enough money to help people in North
Carolina. We're talking about the SBA disaster loan.
That's money for people in North Carolina,
and that's important. And people in North Carolina need that. Wait, this is nothing new. Peter, this is nothing new. Congress comes together, they provide money, millions of dollars, for disaster relief. We're asking them to do the job that they have been doing for some time.
From a letter that President Biden sent to Johnson, McConnell, Schumer, and Jeffries. The president's letter is not misinformation. Would you agree?
No, the way you're asking me the question is misinformation. There is money that we are allocating to the impacted areas, and there's money there to help people who truly need it. There are survivors who need the funding, and it's there.
That you don't like misinformation.
I actually said we have the money available to help survivors of Hurricane Helene and also Hurricane Milton. Now there's going to be a shortfall, right? Because we don't know how bad Hurricane Milton is going to be. And so we're going to need additional funding. That's
exactly what I just asked about. And you said it was misinformation. Yes.
What you're asking me is why Congress needs to come back and do their job. That's what you're asking me. Congress needs to come back and do their job and provide extra assistance, extra funding to disaster relief fund. That's what Congress needs to do, and we're going to continue to urge that. You may not want that, but that's okay. That's what this president wants, and that's what the vice president wants. Thanks, everybody.
She's serious, dude. But yeah, it's misinformation, Peter. The way you ask the question is misinformation with all your pesky facts and your figures. It's misinformation. I mean, it's just insane, man. I mean, I can't believe a regular person can say these things. I mean, you got to wonder, do these people think, does it make sense when the words leave their lips? Do they think that what they're saying is reasonable? Because that what she's doing right there, that is misinformation, right? And more, Kamala Harris, just a dedicated public servant pretending that she actually has an important role in emergency management. And yet you have to give credit where credit is due, man. Joe Biden gave DeSantis his personal cell phone number. Joe Biden repeatedly talks about how good a job the governors have been doing. And Kamala, she's sure doing a good job of making Joe Biden actually look presidential in his twilight, right? I mean, Kamala tries to get involved. Just listen to how many times she actually says we. Every time she says we, she really wants to say me. And she acts as if she actually has a role. She acts as if she's actually done something impactful at all.
We've been working around the clock to prepare for Hurricane Milton and to ensure that people are safe, including ensuring federal, state, and local resources are being coordinated in a smart and efficient and effective way. We have also been in constant contact with the leaders in Florida to make sure that we are cutting any red tape that might get in the way of getting relief to folks, to make sure also that communities receive the resources and the support that they need as quickly as possible. Already, we have sent more than 1,000 federal personnel to be on the ground in Florida to assist with what needs to happen in the state to prepare for this hurricane, and we will continue to scale up those efforts. To the people of Florida, and in particular, the people of the Tampa region, we urge you to take this storm seriously. As has been said before, this is a storm that is expected to be of historic proportion. And many of you, I know, are tough and you've ridden out these hurricanes before. This one's going to be different. And so we ask you that by every measure, understand it's going to be more dangerous, more deadly, and more catastrophic. So please listen to your local officials. They know what they're talking about. They know what they're doing. And if you are told to evacuate, please evacuate immediately. Do not wait until it is too late. And in the hours and days ahead, President Biden and I and our administration will continue to do everything we can to protect the people who have been in the path of this storm. And once the storm has passed, we will be there to help folks recover and rebuild, as we continue to do for those communities in Florida, Georgia, North and South Carolina, and across the Southeast who have been devastated by Hurricane Helene. Finally, as the president mentioned, to any company or individual that might use this crisis to exploit people who are desperate for help through illegal fraud or price gouging, whether it be at the gas pump, the airport, or the hotel counter, know that we are monitoring these behaviors and the situation on the ground very closely, and anyone taking advantage of consumers will be held accountable. The bottom line is this hurricane poses an extreme danger, and we urge everyone in Florida to take extreme caution. And we are with you, and we will get through this together.
Honestly, you got to give her credit, man. That might be the best piece of media that she's put out through her entire campaign. I mean, it's kind of amazing what her team can put together between the Blowjob podcast and Howard Stern to give us this. But this is what these people do, man. And this is who these people are. And all I know is we have got to find a way to make sure that Donald Trump beats this woman at the ballot box, man. She cannot become president. So guys, share these videos. Make sure you vote, man. Make sure you vote. Make sure you take everyone you know to go with you as well, right? We have one last chance to send a very, very loud and very, very clear message to this Washington machine, man. And if we can't do it now, if we can't win against these people with the team that we have right now, then we'll never, ever be able to win another thing. I know that much for sure. But that's all I got, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't already, be a part of our growth. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. I'll see you in the next one.